What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's the one and only Dark Waters, James Williams, and I'm back with another phenomenal interview. Now, before I get to running my big old mouth and talking to my guest, Tom, ladies and gentlemen, let me say something to you, and I'm going to whisper this to you. I hope y'all listening. Look, when we have people on as guests to this podcast show, man, if we don't help people out and help them grow, then nobody comes. So I need you guys, when somebody comes on and asks you to do something, I need you to listen and do it, okay? All right, now with that being said, that's just between the Dark Waters family. Nobody else gonna hear that but us, right? With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, tonight I have Tom Kardos on with me, and he's from the North Carolina Cryptid and Paranormal Project. I've seen this gentleman in the chat on a lot of our live streams, and we've been speaking back and forth, and I think it's been over a month we've been trying to get together and chop it up about Bigfoot. And I'm excited, Tom, to have some time to hang out with you, and let's talk about the hairy man and the monster. How are you doing today, my friend?
How's it going, Mr. Dark Waters? How are you doing tonight?
Brother, I am fantastic. It's nice to finally meet you. Ladies and gentlemen, y'all should see Tom. Tom is buff. He looks like he bench pressed about 315, 25 times, you know what I'm saying? And he's got the head of a buff guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got the head of a fat guy, but I still got a little muscle. He's definitely in shape. Ladies, if y'all could see this man, y'all be like, ooh, swooning over him. But nonetheless, we're going to get into talking about Bigfoot and monsters. Tom, I like to start off my shows this way. All right. From all my research and everybody I've talked to, there's a right-hand bucket and a left-hand bucket. On the left-hand side, we got people who got interested in the paranormal, Bigfoot, and cryptids based on something that happened as a child. Like, their parents are watching something on TV, a movie, they had an encounter, or something crazy happened. Then on the right-hand side, there are people who said, okay, I'm 20 years old, this is my hobby, I went to a convention, I want to kind of participate in this field. Which side are you on? You coming from the left-hand side or the right-hand side? It doesn't matter which side you're here, and that's all that counts. But which one would you say got you interested?
I'm gonna go with your first pick. Kind of like a kind of young age. I wouldn't say drawn into it, but I was drawn into the paranormal topic subject between horror movies and growing up in New Jersey, you had the Jersey Devil. You had a lot of areas that were haunted or had some kind of paranormal presence to them, and they used to make a book called Weird New Jersey, and it was also in a magazine, and it would print out all the hot spots you can go to, and back then you could drive to a spot and go check it out, and this was before there was it was even called paranormal research, and you just go to a spot, check it out, like Gravity Hill, some old abandoned mental hospital, whatever it was, and you could just go there and check it out with a flashlight and maybe take some pictures if you have back then all you could do was like a 35 millimeter camera or a Polaroid, and you had a deadbeat flashlight that barely lit up the darkness. You made do, you know what I mean?
No, I know exactly what you're saying, man. I know exactly what you're saying. So you got interested in it as a young man, and it's amazing. A lot of people do come in through that route. And I think what ended up happening, Tom, is before the internet, well, actually, before the internet, before YouTube, there was no way for people to actually follow that passion. So when YouTube bust open, it was like, okay, everybody can follow their passion. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody wants to get involved. So welcome to the game. I see you've been around for a while. You have 500 subscribers. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to set a goal, and I'm going to do a deal with you guys, right? I just told y'all we got to support people. So my man is at 545, 550 subs. I'm going to tell y'all what I'm going to do. If y'all get this man to 1,100 subs, that's 600 people, I'm going to drop Afghan airdrop Dogman encounter on YouTube. I got content, guys, that's just sitting there, right? Stuff that I'm ready to bust it out. I'm going to drop it on YouTube. I was going to drop it for the members. I'm going to drop it on YouTube. So, you want to hear the Afghan Dogman drop? Hit this man, get him some subscribers. All right, Tom, let's go. Let's get into Bigfoot. All right, so, you started your channel. Exactly why did you start your channel? Are you trying to get the word out about Bigfoot? Are you trying to find answers about your Bigfoot encounter? Walk me through how we get to having this channel and what's our purpose of having this channel.
Absolutely. I'll go to the very beginning. So 1997, it was either 97 or 98. I've always been hunting in the woods with, either by myself or with my brother. We'd go, either deer hunting or turkey hunting, whatever it was. And we decided, that year to go bear hunting in Canada. And I'd never been out of the country before until this trip. So it was like a 3-day hunt. We went to Ontario, Canada. It was a place called the KOA Lodge, the River Lodge, and it was near the Algonquin Park, and it was right along a river edge. You could take a boat out and go fishing, and if you were bored or if you weren't hunting, and I did a little bit of everything. So one of the hunt days, we went out to an area, and it was a wide open area. The hunting guide, dropped us off along like a logging road out there, and we went into a tree stand. It was one of those pre-made tree stands. And sorry, I'm getting a little nervous talking about it. It always coming back. It always just makes my heart a little racy talking about it. Just still, even to this day, and this is back in 97, 98. But needless to say, we're in a tree stand. We had no activity for a couple hours. It was starting to get dark. Right before it got dark, we got out of the tree, walked around, found a nice big open clear area after we got out of the tree, and we're just kind of looking at each other and looking around and just kind of taking a sight of how pretty it was out. I mean, you're not used to seeing how actually beautiful nature is out in Canada compared to New Jersey. It's a whole nother atmosphere. So we're just looking around, looking at the tree line, and all of a sudden we look in the tree line and there's a huge kind of like an opening, like a hole, and we see this huge figure, a human shaped figure, and this thing is standing in the opening, in the hole, and it probably stood at least 10 foot tall, 4 foot wide, and we just looked at each other with our eyes, like bug-eyed, staring at each other like, what the hell is that? Something we never saw before. And we're like, it's not a bear, it's not it's not a moose, it's not anything, because the night before we saw a moose run up to our Suburban when we're baiting the stands with the hunting guide. He took us out to bait, so we knew kind of what a moose looked like up front, up close and personal. And we're like, that's not a moose, it's not a bear. And when it left, it stood there for about 10 to 15 seconds, and when it walked off, you felt the ground pounding, like you felt that boom, boom, you felt that bipedal ground pounding, and we were just lost for words. But we were like looking at each other, just like that one time when you had that fear inside you and you don't know what to say. You're just lost for words. You just you're dumbfounded. You don't know what else to do. So. But we decided to get out of there once we knew it was safe. We kind of determined after a couple minutes, there was nothing's there anymore. We're going to get out of here. So we walked along a different path that brought us to the logging road that we were getting picked up at. And as we're walking along this path, we start hearing something that sounds like the army of the orcs from Lord of the Rings. If you know that sound, and we're hearing that on both sides of us, and it's like it's flanking us. And we're just like, holy crap, this isn't wolves. It's not, it's not anything that we're used to hearing in the woods, and it's totally off. It's blowing our minds away, and we're like, we're looking at each other like we're going to die in the friggin' woods in Canada. No one's going to be able to, find our bodies. So, thankfully, this goes on for maybe another minute or two. And I guess now to think about it, after hearing so many encounters, we were probably being escorted out of the woods by some kind of clan, by our troop or a family unit, because we're getting too close to maybe their sleeping area or their quarters, whatever you want to call it. So we got into the Suburban to get picked up, and we didn't say a word to the hunting guide, because back then you mention things like that, they're gonna they're gonna call you crazy, tell you get the hell off my here's your money back, don't come back, and don't say nothing to nobody. So that was one of those things that you kind of take it to the grave, but you don't talk about it. And back then you really didn't have no one to talk to about things like that. So we just kind of every now and then we'd remind ourselves Canada, and we'd look at each other, and our eyes would get all big, and we get all don't know what to say. It gets awkward. But I know that my brother's one of those people that he's kind of in denial about it, because he's one of those hunters that if he believes something like that exists, it would keep him from going deep in the woods and hunting all the time. So he's always been in denial about it, and kind of brushed it off and didn't want to believe it. And I always do the opposite. So you know what I mean?
No, I know exactly what you're saying. So he decided he was just going to not deal with it. He said, "Nah, it didn't happen. It don't exist. That never happened. I'm going hunting again tomorrow." Let me ask you
Yeah.
this question: how tall was that thing, or did you say that and I missed it? Just
It
an
was.
estimate.
It had to be at least 10 foot tall, because the size of the opening that was in that wood line, it was every bit of 10 feet from the ground to the top of it, and it was about maybe 7, 8 foot wide of the opening, and this thing filled it. The width of it was half of that, filling it. So yeah.
Yeah, bro, that's terrifying. That's absolutely terrifying. So, did you did it keep you from going back into the woods, or how are you with going into the woods now?
Well, this was back then. I mean, honestly, I kind of just put it down, almost like uh, I wouldn't say denial, but I just kind of put it down to the back burner. Never thought about it. Um, Surprisingly, I just kind of lived my life and didn't really think about it. And I always once we got back home, we kind of just lived our lives and didn't really think about it or didn't react to it in any kind of trauma. I started listening to podcasts. I think it was like might have been your podcast, Wes Germer's, and well, the fellow that died, Brent and Sullivan. And I started listening to these podcasts, and then Coonbo and Bear and all that, and it brought everything back. And it just kind of the PTSD just came all back, and I just started thinking about it, and it made I just divulged back into listening to all these podcasts to kind of get that understanding and try to learn more. And then some Facebook groups started to come out, and I became members of those to try to talk to people to understand, to get with people that had the similar experiences as I did, so we can kind of, I guess, have something relatable because you have someone that believes you that doesn't think you're a lunatic.
Nah, man, trust me, I know, and that's the craziest thing. I talked to so many witnesses that what it is, you're looking for a support group, right, to
Mm-hmm.
support you based on what you saw. And I talked to so many witnesses that they were driven to Facebook, driven to YouTube, driven to podcasts like my boy Wes Garmer's podcast, because they just needed a support group for what they saw. Because you
Mm-hmm.
can't talk to your next door neighbor, be like, "Yo, bro, I was up last night cooking eggs and bacon at 2 o'clock in the morning because I was mad at my old lady and looked out the window. There was a giant freaking ape in my window." Because they're gonna look at you like you're crazy, and that's what ends up happening to people. It's it's really in my opinion, man, it's really a good thing that this kind of niche exists for people like that. Some of the bad things in this niche are, people acting crazy and going crazy, but the niche itself is a great thing for people who witness these beasts and they had their encounters. So it's a beautiful thing. I'm glad you're on board with doing it and that you're participating in it. Walk me through some of the Dogman. I mean, not some of the Bigfoot encounters. See, I got Dogman on my mind. Some of
That's
the Bigfoot
fine. No,
encounters that your witnesses have spoken to you about, or some of the things that you've heard from the people who've been on your show.
I've actually had a dogman witness. A good friend of mine became friends with this gentleman. His name is Todd T, and he's a trucker. And he was actually driving along North Carolina, not too far from where I live, along one of the interstates, and they were doing construction. He saw a white dogman at 3 in the morning run up alongside one of those construction signs. He said it was every bit of 7.5 to 8 foot tall, but it looked like it was like malnutrition, like it wasn't eating right, almost like a really skinny, slender body build. But he said it was up on two legs, running along next to a sign at 3 in the morning. And I was like, that's probably the perfect time to see one of these things because you know why not? There's no cars on the road that time of night, and it's like a perfect you know stomping grounds element for these things to be travel as far as they need to travel unseen, unscathed.
No, absolutely, man. North Carolina, you guys got a whole bunch of crazy stuff going on over there. Not only you
Yeah.
have Dogman, you got Bigfoot. You definitely got the Vomit, which is Alligator Man. I've got a couple of Alligator Man reports out of there. You guys have this freaking giant bird that I've never really discussed, but I'll talk about it a little bit now. You guys have a giant freaking bird. It's black and red. It has this red. It looks like red stripes under its wings, but it's actually black and red feathers that people have reported outside of Charlotte. And these are people like in the hood outside of Charlotte. And the first time I heard about that, bro, I was like, "Come on, man, y'all lying." There's like, "Nah, you don't believe me, James? Talk to my neighbor." People like handing a cell phone around each other. Tell them about the
Yeah.
black bird. And it'll be passed around by five people, and they're all talking about a giant black bird. I'm like, "Come on, man, this is just insane. Y'all got crazy, creepy stuff in North Carolina." All right,
Yeah.
so if you don't mind, let's dig into Bigfoot. I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions. You tell me what comes to mind, right? So one of the things that I picked up on while we were doing the little camera project that we had, which was called Dogman Cams, we ended up getting more Sasquatch activity than Dogman activity, in my opinion. Only Dogman activity we got was in Fort Pierce, Florida. So we started
Mhm.
getting all this Bigfoot activity, and one of the things that confused me was there would be these balls of light that we would capture that were
Hmm.
clear like orbs, the clear balls of light, and they would be stationary. And then it would move from one side of the camera to the other side of the camera, and then you would find a Bigfoot face. Do you think there's any kind of correlation between the orbs and the actual physical manifestation of Bigfoot? What's your thoughts on that?
I do strongly believe that there is a paranormal, some kind of spectrum element to that because if you know the Squatch Man Greg Yost, he had an encounter in Indiana at a state park where he saw a bunch of orbs alongside of a mountain, and then 12 Sasquatch came out of these orbs and ran down the hill, you know, formed out of these big orbs, and it's like nothing. You can't. It's unexplainable. I mean, how does that happen? I mean, it's not. It's almost like it blows your. You want to have a flesh and blood theory, but then it has a whole nother paranormal aspect where these things can jump through portals and hop through orbs and do all kinds of crazy stuff. One footprint, and then the next minute you looked and there's no footprint. So there's got to be an explanation for that. That really, no one really. I mean, I don't have an answer for it because I don't have one to study, or I don't have a government person to tell me the truth about it because I'm sure they have all the answers.
Oh, trust me, they got a whole bunch of answers. They got a whole bunch of answers. They just don't want us to know all the answers. So we kind of
Mhm.
putting the pieces of the puzzle together as we go. Another thing that I saw out there, and I'm just talking through this with you. I'm literally looking at the ceiling, talking through some of these things. Another thing I saw was like I'm calling them the hooded figures. They're hooded figures with kind of like dull, glowing white eyes. We saw that. I think it all lends to the paranormal aspect
Mhm.
of these creatures. Um, it's something that we have to explore more, a hell of a lot more. I think Michael Cook and I were talking about needing to explore that a hell of a lot more. And it's kind of a sub niche of Bigfoot and of Dogman that I don't think anybody really targets. Everybody's fascinated with, the encounter, especially the scary Bigfoot encounters.
Yeah.
They're absolutely fascinated by that. What would you say is the scariest encounter that's been shared with you outside of your own personal encounter?
Um, I mean, I haven't. One of my, let's see. There's so many. I can go with. I can go with. I can go with my friend Jay. I recently had on interviewed a good friend of mine. His name's Jay Birch, and he had one charging him out in out west. I can't think of this. It was either in Colorado or California, but it was a park out there. He was with his wife, and he had one of these things kind of um, like bluff charge him. He thought he was going to go out get his wife, and he was. I mean, he was scared shitless. He didn't know what to do. He was just kind of frozen, and he eventually, when he came to, he got the hell in the car and got the hell out of there. But when these things come at you, I mean, it's like the fight or flight. What are you going to do?
Oh no, hell yeah! Like I would dread finding myself in a situation where, and I wouldn't put myself in a situation. Not with all the knowledge I have, I wouldn't put myself in a situation where my family is around something like that. I get invited to go hiking all the time with this guy that I work out with, Jordan. We'll be finished doing bench press. He'll be like, "Hey, bro, the family and I are going hiking this weekend." I'm like, "Jordan, I'm not going in the woods." He's like, "Man, come on, Jordan, I'm not going in the woods." He's like, "Bro, I'll bring this. Bro, you can bring whatever you want. I'm not going in the woods." I said, "You don't know what's in there." I said, "So you think it's cool?" And he brings his babies in the woods. He brings his, but he Jordan's a monster too at the same time. But like, bro, no, I'm not doing it, man. I would hate to find myself in a situation like that. It would be utterly terrifying, and I can imagine how your friend felt being in a situation like that. That's just scary. Um, all right, let's play a little quick game on this. You've heard enough about Dogman, even though you might not have talked to a whole bunch of witnesses on Dogman. If we had a cage fight, who would you put your money on?
Oh man, this is a. I mean, I've heard of the all based on the encounters I've heard of. I would put my money on the Sasquatch because although the dog man might be a little faster and he have more agile and has those really sharp, thick claws, I think the Sasquatch has the strength. Um, he can go longer probably, and based on the mass, the build, and the size, I think he could probably take on the dog as long as he don't get pit bull chomped on the neck by the dog man. He'll be all right. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna give you my opinion on it. So if any Bigfoot, in my opinion, should be able to handle any dog man except for the the dog man that the crazy. I don't know what's wrong with this thing. It literally has a Bigfoot body, but it has a full snout. But it's got a Bigfoot body. I mean, it's like a humanoid body, no hocks, no nothing,
Oh
but it
yeah.
has a dog snout. Hands down, dog snout. People be like, no, it's got a short snout. No, this thing got a snout, and it's got big old pointy ears, and but it's a dog man. But it has the humanoid Bigfoot body. I think Bigfoot could beat anything but that crazy bastard right there.
Yeah.
Something is wrong with him, and bro, I tell people all the time that when they describe that thing to me, I say, look, if it looked like anything else, I would tell you you're gonna be fine. That thing right there, you need to go ahead and move. You just need to go ahead and move.
Oh
You
yeah.
need to move, man.
You,
There's some
you need
people. Go
all the
ahead.
dragon's breath in the world couldn't stop that thing, right?
Nah, bro. It's not. It's not doing nothing. It's not doing nothing to that thing. And so my money is on Bigfoot as long as it's not facing that version of a dog man. If it's facing that version of a dog man, I'm sorry, Bigfoot, homie, you getting wrecked because you've been wrecked before by it multiple times, and it's gonna be what it's gonna be. Um,
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you, I've been listening to people. There's this thing going on right now in the kind of narration community where there's it's kind of hard to describe it, but all right. So these guys are taking elements of the missing 411, and then they're taking elements of real cryptid encounters, and then they're combining them and they're turning them into stories, but they're pitching them like, we're sharing a story from this person who had this encounter, blah blah blah, and they're using. I mean, it's a great. What they're doing is phenomenal. I'm not bad mouthing
Yeah.
them. Um, but I'm saying that to say there's these connections being made to the missing 411 and Bigfoot and Dogman. And I wanted to get your opinion on what if there is a connection. But let me preface that by saying this. Unfortunately, because people are taking bits and pieces of the four missing 411 and then bits and pieces of true encounters and then switching them and kind of making a puzzle piece and pitching it out there as it's true. Now we're starting to get like this filtered, I mean this dirty data, and they're starting to create these narratives that just if you understand what you're listening to, they don't make sense. I want to say
Yeah.
that, but what are your thoughts on the roles of Bigfoot when it comes to the missing 411?
I will say that based on data produced by sightings on the U.S. map, and then based on missing 411 along the U.S. map, if you do like trace paper with red ink and blue ink, you put them on top of each other, they almost correlate like dead exact on the spots. So I'm going to say that I'm sure it's related, possibly Bigfoot, possibly Dogman, and then you have your, we've talked about on some other channels. They were mentioning feral people that lived in the woods for hundreds of years, that pretty much denounced all things, technology, everything to do with mankind, and they resorted to the woods, and they made generations of their own people, and they're interbred. So I'm sure there's deformities, and they probably look like cryptids as well. So what are they going to eat? They see a camper coming through the woods, they go, quick meal.
No, for sure. There's definitely in Arkansas. There's definitely some feral people in some of those hollows in Arkansas. Absolutely, bro. When I worked for Energy, and it was weird. We had a tailgate meeting, right? We had the tailgate meeting, and we getting ready to go into one of these hollows and walk through. And I didn't even understand why we had to go down there because you never put a utility pole, you never put a power line, a power pole in the hollow. You create the span to go over it. I think they were just screwing around with everybody, just to kind of like a hazing for all the new people to make them walk down there and walk out. But the one
Right.
thing that they did say on the tailgate meeting was, hey, if we get down here and you see a person, don't engage and don't try and talk to a person down in these hollows. And they were definitely serious, like for real. Like if you get separated and you see a person, don't talk to that person. Come find us. And I thought that was weird. But looking back on it now, and to me, that's confirmation that there was definitely, without a doubt, feral people in some of those hollows in North Arkansas, way up there by Bow Shoals and Mountain Home, and I'm talking about
Yeah.
real wooded areas of Arkansas, man. It's
Deep country, deep
yeah,
country.
deep, 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 deep country. You get lost up in that, boy, you got you a problem on your hands. And I'm pretty sure that there's some stuff going on out there. And I've had a number of Bigfoot encounters that came from that area that were terrifying and very, very aggressive Bigfoot encounters. What do you think the elements that need to combine in order for a person to have like an aggressive encounter like you and your brother had? You guys definitely had an
Right.
encounter. What elements do you think need to be at play for that to happen?
I think if you're, say, you're a moonshiner, you're going out in the middle of nowhere in the woods and you're making this moonshine still. You're encroaching on their land, so they're gonna use violence. They're gonna harass you and get you out of there. Or if you're a grower, of growing stuff, they're gonna do the same thing. Or if you're even if you're out hunting or hiking, I mean, you encroach on come near one of their babies or whatever in the nursing area. I mean, that's just means to get get your ass handed to you by one of these things and forced out easily.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking it's a combination of territorial rights
Hmm.
and then well, let's say proximity to their home base, right? Wherever they consider to be home, I think it's proximity to home, and part of it has to be behavior. Did you guys do anything crazy while you were out there? You and your brother, y'all just out there?
We weren't doing anything. I mean, back then, I think we got a carton of cigarettes for like $12 at the right at the Canadian border. So we were probably smoking in the woods and just being ourselves. But we weren't doing nothing like disrespectful because when you hunt, you kind of respect the woods. But we weren't doing anything out of the ordinary because normal the hunter mentality, you're not going to do nothing stupid because you don't want to spook nothing, especially in a new area that you've never been to. You don't want to bring nothing that you don't want coming at you because we knew there were wolves out there and whatnot. And I can go into my North Carolina encounter too later on when you're ready for that. But I don't think we're doing anything out of the ordinary. To at least it might have just been land encroachment, like what you were mentioning. Someone comes in your yard unannounced, and you get people trying to bang on, come through your back door, and they're rummaging through your living room. You're gonna do whatever you got to do to get them the hell out of your house, right?
No, absolutely. I'm gonna give you all the smoke. You come to my front door uninvited, and I'm thinking that's a major part of it. I didn't know you had a North Carolina encounter. Let's walk through that one. Talk to me a little bit about what happened when you were in North Carolina.
Sure. So we moved to North Carolina in 2007. My daughter was born. We bought a house in 2015, had it built, and has about an acre or so plus a property. And then there's probably about another 40 to 50 plus acres surrounding that wooded area. So once we moved here, the house was built. We got in. I started noticing, a lot of deer. I was like, well, that's great because I can bow hunt on the property. Within city limits of where I live, you can't use a gun. You can only bow hunt. So I made a tree stand. The right amount of yardage away from any kind of dwellings, so it's all legit. Um, Built the tree stand, got up there, started hunting. You started taking game camera pictures, got uh, really good pictures of some bucks and good sized deer. So it was very enticing to go out and start hunting quickly. So I got out. I think the first season was 2016 after we moved in because the year after we moved in, I didn't hunt that year. It was the year after because there was just so much going on when you move into a house and putting things up. And built a whole fence around my house. I mean, did a lot of work myself, so that stuff takes a toll on you, and you don't have time for anything else to do but housework. You know what I mean? So that being said, I got up in my tree one morning. It was probably about 4:45. Daylight comes around 5:45, so I had a good hour or so to get before daylight came. So I'm getting in my tree stand. First thing I noticed, or first thing that happened as I was climbing up my ladder, because I had like a little custom extension ladder going to it. It wasn't one of those fancy stands. It was just something I built, homemade wood, and a little extension ladder hooked up to it. Dropped my flashlight. I was like, oh crap. So I told myself, I was like, I'll get it later. I'll get it after I'm done hunting because I'm not going to need it anyway. I use a little flashlight just to kind of guide myself through the path to get to the stand. So once I figured I was in the stand, I wouldn't need it. So I got in the stand, sat in my little seat, started waiting for daylight to come. I probably had about give or take 20 or 30 minutes before light started coming, and all of a sudden I started hearing something to my 9 o'clock at 30 yards, and then I hear something at my 12 o'clock same distance, about 20 or 30 yards from center of my location. And it sounds, and I say this all the time, it sounds like a cross between a monkey, an owl, and a parrot all combined into one. And I mean, I've been in the woods my whole life. I've heard all the animals. I know what sounds, what's supposed to sound, and this just sounded totally off. And it started making me shake, really bad. I was getting nervous. My heart was racing, and I went to go grab my cell phone. I was going to try to get the light on my cell phone, and I was shaking so bad that I dropped my cell phone off the tree stand, and I just started hearing this whoa, all that back and forth, still doing it. It's going on for a good 30 seconds plus, and that 30 seconds feels like a lifetime when you're experiencing something like that. And I really didn't know what else to do. I was just kind of frozen, pretty much. Some people have that fight or flight syndrome, and I couldn't move for the life of me. I was just kind of stuck there, frozen, my heart racing, and I thought I was going to die in a tree stand. So eventually, maybe a minute later, I kind of got to myself. I came to, and all I had was a 380 in my pocket, because I always carry some kind of pistol on me when I go in the woods, just for protection against anything other than a wild hog, a coyote, something, whatever. So I looked at it, I was like, well, this isn't going to do shit. It's pitch black. I can't see nothing. These things are going back and forth. So I just stood up and I was like, listen, I don't want no problems. Whatever you are, just leave me alone. I don't want to bother you. I don't mean to harm you. I just want to get a deer. And you let me get a deer, I'll leave. So maybe a minute or so stops or goes by, and everything stops. Everything's quiet. The forest is quiet. You couldn't hear a pin drop. And maybe 15, 20 minutes goes by, and you start seeing daylight in the woods. And once I saw the daylight, I saw like a clear view of a path to get down the tree. I got down from that tree and I got the hell out of there. I ran out of the woods so fast with I had my crossbow strapped across my shoulders, and I got the heck out of there. And I didn't go in the woods for, I think, the rest, 6 months or something like that. I don't think I hunted that whole season. I don't remember if it was a whole season or not, but the next time I went in the woods, I actually waited till the light was, till it was daylight. I wouldn't go hunting until it was daylight, until I got comfortable back to hunting again. And, I got a hold of Wes. I got to mention, I think I shared my first encounter with Wes when I first, back in 2015, when I kind of, things started coming back and that kind of thing. So I had to get it out and share it with somebody. So I shared this with Wes as well, and it felt a lot better. And I had someone to understand the situation, and just kind of someone to hear me out, because I needed someone to hear me out, because I knew no one else would believe me if I told anyone in my family.
Nah, you shared it with the best in the business, baby. That's what you did. That's bro. That's pretty spooky, man. So 2 times escorted out of the woods. Well, one time escorted out of the woods. The other time you had to literally talk to them and get them to just leave you alone, man. That's 2 times in one lifetime, bro. That's special. That's a
Yeah,
special thing. You know what I'm saying? Because most people encounter these things once, and it's one and done. But 2 times, man, that's something going on with you. Do you think? Have you pondered why you've seen them twice? Have you ever taken time to, or you've not seen but encountered them twice? Have you
right.
ever pondered
I mean,
why?
I don't know why, but I know I've heard a lot of people say these things they can see your intentions, they can feel your heart. If you're a good person, they will maybe expose or kind of have some kind of interaction with you. If you're a good person, if you're not, evil at heart,
Yes,
they
yes,
can,
yes. You have had an
kind of
opportunity to listen to enough of this interview for free. If you want to hear more, log on to imdogwaters.com today and become a member.